Hey guys, Jeremy Hood here. Wanted to show you how I make these leather crosses. And first thing I'm going to do is cut out just the template, and I have it in a document where I have some notes so I don't forget next to it, so I'm going to keep those while I'm working on it. Alright, next step is to move over to my chunk of leather, my cowhide. I bought this from Tandy Leather. It was $50 for the whole hide. I know they can be up to around $250 or more, but they had a really good deal on them at the Atlanta Knife Show that happens in Cobb Center once a year. So I bought that, and what I'm going to do is just line up and cut out a chunk of leather that's about the size of the template I'm using. I'm going to be using a roller cutter, but whatever works for you guys, I'm sure will be fine. And there we have it. The next step is to go somewhere where I'm not worried about making a mess, and I'm in the garage right now. And I'm going to use this leather die, which I also bought at Tandy Leather. And I'm going to dye just the front of this. The back of it doesn't matter yet. And that looks pretty good to me. The next step is to seal it with this stuff. Again, Tandy Leather. The reason I'm doing this first is the next step is going to be to glue this on here with some rubber cement. And once I glue this, the rubber cement doesn't quite come off all the way, so the dye won't soak into the leather. Now I can rub off most of it and you never know it's there. But the dye won't soak in, so it will be obvious then. So that's why I'm doing this first before I cut it. It's a little bit wasteful on the dye, but not much. And this wasn't super expensive anyway. I should warn you, it doesn't bother me that this stuff gets on my hands, but it will stay there for a few days. So if you don't want your hands to be funky colored for a few days, then you probably should wear gloves while you're doing this. That's the sealer. That looks pretty good to me. Now the sealer's pretty well soaked in. I'm still waiting for it to not be shiny anymore. Next step is Elmer's rubber cement, or any kind of sticky thing that'll hold the paper on but then come off after we've cut out the crosses. Alright, now we glue the template on there, and I'm going to go ahead and just put some weight on it while it dries. Just let that sit now with just a little bit of weight. The next step is long and tedious, and that is to cut everything out, cut the template out. So I have this 3-pack of chisels, and I only pulled out the 1/2 inch and the 1 inch because that's all I'll be using. And what I've done here is sharpen these edges so they're quite pointy, if you will, because I don't want them to push the leather out too much. And the cross is 2 centimeters here, 1 centimeter here, so with that 1/2 centimeter thickness it ends up being 3.5 centimeters by 2.5. So this 1 inch cut, I purposely left a little gap in the template to make this 1 inch cut without having the corner of the chisel hit this next cross over here. So that's the goal. I don't use a hammer or anything, I just put my hand on top of it and I just push down with my shoulder. Videography is not my forte, so bear with me. But let's see if I can cut one of these out and kind of get a halfway decent cut out of it. Then, the beauty of the rubber cement, the template comes right off. So in this case it came off by itself, but sometimes I do have to peel it off, and there's the cross. Now you notice in some of these corners there's like little fuzzy stuff, so I'll just take some scissors and trim that. Next step is to cut the hole for the thread to go through. So what I'm going to do is just take my pocket knife and go put it about halfway in between the leather, and I want a teardrop where the smooth part of the knife is on top, so it doesn't tend to tear more, and the cut is going down, so when the cross is hanging it'll hopefully not tear the leather any more than we want it to. And I'm flipping it over and cutting the other side as well. And then I take a small screwdriver, poke it through the hole, and kind of just open it up a little. And then I have cotton thread, and I chose black. I just run that through. And I make the thread a little bit long because you can always shorten it later. So I'm probably doing about, I don't know, 15 inches on each side, so 30 inches total. Then I kind of squish that leather back together again so it's not super obvious where the thread goes through. Then this knot that I tie is called a fisherman's knot or loop or hook, or I've heard it called multiple things. But I'm crossing the threads here, and I'll show you a little close up here once I get this part tied. So this is just a loop over, nothing fancy. Then the other side I do another loop over, same thing. So we have two overhand knots, like that. And then just pull those tight. So that one's tight. Pull this one tight. And in theory, you can adjust this necklace by pulling these two apart like this. So that makes the necklace shorter. Or you can make it longer by pulling these together. And what I end up doing is just pulling these against each other, get them nice and tight. And that's the strongest knot that holds two ropes of the same size together. And then I'm going to trim off the edge and leave maybe a 1/4 inch of extra thread just so it doesn't come undone. Just like that. Looks like my cut my thread unevenly. Let me fix that. That's better. Minor details, but I like it to look nice. Okay, so now I'm back to my die. Oops, the die is holding the camera up. All right, now the rubber cement is holding the camera up. And now I'm going to die it one more time. And if you want, you can just try and rub off any glue that might be there. And then dunk the cross. Dunk. So now the front is all consistent. Edges, sides, inside the hole, everything. I'm just going to let that sit for a while. Oh, and what I was doing was where is it? Right there. Oh, duh. Sorry. What I was doing was pushing the cross down against a flat surface to make the front of it flat, because the leather's wet right now, so it's nice and soft and malleable. But once it dries, it's going to firm up, and it'll feel a little bit like soft wood probably. So I want that nice and flat when it's done drying. When I do a bunch of these at once, by the time I'm done dyeing them all, the first ones are dry, so I can go ahead and start putting the sealer on those. But in this case, I just waited a couple seconds. And what I'm going to do, make sure the knot is centered on the string. Maybe you don't care about that, but I do. Because once I do this, the sealer is actually going to not only seal the leather, keep it waterproof, but it's also going to go in that little hole and keep the thread from sliding back and forth, which is kind of a nice little bonus feature. Alright, and it comes out all bubbly and stuff. That's okay. The bubbles will pop and soak into the cross. Oh, I'm showing you guys the back of the cross. My bad. And that's how you make a cross. I give these away to anyone who asks, and I'm wearing one myself. I just keep it inside my shirt because it's for me. It's not to brag or anything. It's just for me to remember. But anyone who asks me, I give them away to them. And if somebody wants them as a gift for somebody else, then I charge them a little bit of money and donate it to my church. All right, and you guys can use these same principles, obviously, making any kind of little trinkets like that. If you want to make a heart or whatever, you can print out on the computer and cut out with a chisel. All right, thanks for watching.